this hydro pole here.
The aftermath of a wild West End crash.
Tonight, a van spins out of control, crashing into an ambulance, recounting a destructive chain of events early this morning. Good evening. 2 paramedics were hurt. Their injuries, thankfully, not serious.
Tonight, Toronto police are searching for 2 suspects who witnesses say fled the scene. CTV's Janice Golding joins us live near Dover Court and DuPont. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Well, the sounds of the collisions woke a lot of people in the neighborhood up, many of whom tell me they'd never seen anything like this outside of a movie.
They hit this hydro pole here. Well, they kind of chopped it, but it was still floating in the air. It still is.
Ashley points out the damage from an early morning crash that happened just outside her bedroom window overnight. It was just before 4 a.m. here at Hallam and Dover Court when a minivan crashed into a hydro pole and struck an ambulance.
Big bang noise and flash noise. I saw a big flash as well, like 2 big flashes from like the power.
And then basically crashed into the hydro pole, the bike rack. It was like basically broken outside, obliterated the garbage bin. And
this surveillance video shows part of the collision as the minivan collides with something in the intersection and then takes out the hydro pole as electrical wires spark and flash. From another security camera a few houses further west on Hallam, you can see the minivan crash into a parked car, which smashes into the SUV in front of it while the minivan spins around. About 10 seconds after the vehicle comes to a stop, a man emerges from the driver's seat, tries to open a rear door unsuccessfully, and then a woman emerges from the driver's side door, and the pair heads off on foot in a westbound direction.
Oh, I feel like adrenaline's rushing through their body. They didn't look too good coming out of the car.
Nelson, who captured the second video, says he was woken up by the sounds of the accident, and when he went to investigate, he couldn't believe what he was seeing.
It seems unreal, mind-blowing, scary.
Shortly after the collision, surveillance video clearly shows 2 paramedics walking separately toward the minivan. Toronto Paramedic Services tells CTV News 2 paramedics sustained minor injuries and were taken to hospital to be assessed. There were no patients in the ambulance.
The vehicle came from like East End here and then this ran through this way, and
the collision making a big impact on many people.
Our neighbor's car was totally totaled from the back.
I was panicking. My dad, my mom, my sister got so panicked.
A scene area residents won't quickly forget. About 50 homes and businesses lost power for a few hours this morning, including the bakery behind us. In fact, staff there tell us that it was so dark in the kitchen they could not prepare or start cooking for a few hours until after they arrived. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding.
Thank you, Janice. Breaking news tonight, Durham police are on the scene of a stabbing inside the Oshawa Centre. We're told the mall's food court has been shut down. The victim has been taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. 2 suspects are in custody, and it's unclear what led to the altercation. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward.
The debate over the cost of ensuring public safety took center stage at Toronto City Hall today.
Councillors crunching the numbers amid a proposed 10.5% property tax increase and feeling pressure from critics to rein in spending on police. CTV's Mike Walker joins us live from City Hall tonight with the story. Mike.
Well, Michelle, Nathan, a number of advocates from community groups came to City Hall today demanding that council not increase the police budget, instead use that money to invest in shelters, transit and social services. As the executive committee meets one last time before Mayor Olivia Chow presents a draft budget,
we're seeing that social services across the city have only ever been given a sliver of the pie, and they're expected to just make it work. Meanwhile, the cops keep asking for the entire pie.
Community advocates and activists demanding City Council not increase the police budget and rather invest that money into social services, infrastructure, and transit.
Invest in more shelter beds, extend hotel shelter leases, expropriate land to create RGI housing so that people actually have a place to go.
Toronto Police is requesting a $20 million increase to its budget, totaling nearly $1.2 billion. But the Care Not Cops Coalition argues that money should be spent on community programs and supports, tackling the root causes of social issues.
Reallocate more than $250 million spent on police and shift resources and responsibilities away from police and invest into alternative crisis response, social support mechanisms,
The budget recommended by city staff is $12 million less than what the Police Services Board approved, a recommendation the mayor will have to decide on by Thursday.
It is a balancing act. It is putting a budget together. It's about making choices.
The police chief has been vocal about the funding discrepancy, arguing it will impact services and response times. Ultimately, council will decide on the police budget. Some councillors already expressing they want the police budget request fulfilled.
When the police are taking 22 minutes, up to 22 minutes to respond to a 911 call, we have a service standard issue, and we need to fix that.
If there's extra fiscal room, I would rather that money went into solving some of the problems I hear about, which is when someone's in crisis on the TTC or on a street corner, they need a mental health worker.
Advocates argue more police funding doesn't make the city safer, pointing to a recent University of Toronto study that found no relation between police funding and crime rates in 20 Canadian municipalities.
Last year, the police did receive $48 million additional dollars, and response times went up.
The mayor noting today this budget already includes a funding increase for support services,
building more shelters and creating more affordable housing.
As Chow continues to finalize a budget she says will address the city's needs. The Mayor Chow has stated several times that the police are receiving a substantial investment in this budget. The entire city budget, including police, will be finalized on Valentine's Day. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Back to you.
Thank you, Mike. And as he touched on, Toronto's chief of police certainly has something to say about spending priorities and the budget.
He sat down with CTV's Rahim Ladani today to talk about money for police and plans to improve public safety.
It's been 13 months since Toronto Police Chief Myron Demkiw was named the city's top cop, and the looming police budget is weighing heavily.
We have 37 more police officers today than we did in 1999. The city has grown by 600,000 people during that time.
Without more officers, the chief warns traffic enforcement, neighborhood community safety, and wait times will all suffer. Last budget, Toronto Police was granted a $48.3 million increase, saying it would help reduce the wait times for Priority 1 calls, which was 21 minutes. This year, the ask is $20 million, but wait times for those same calls are up to more than 22 minutes.
Why should City Council and the people of Toronto trust that the number is actually going to come down if they give you this money, when just last year it did the exact opposite under your watch?
This past year has also seen a 19% increase in calls into our communication center. So the demand on our resources continues to outpace our ability to get out of the deficit we're in.
Beyond the budget, 2023 saw 73 homicides, while the number of people killed or injured in shootings dropped by 25 compared to the year before. Still, violence continues to claim innocent lives. Last July, Carolina Hubner-Macarat was killed by a stray bullet while walking in Leslieville.
The numbers are still nowhere near where they should be. In fact, we need to double down in our capacity in that regard.
When it comes to auto theft, more than 12,000 cars were reported stolen in 2023, a 153% jump from 5 years ago.
We're co-leading the Provincial Carjacking Task Force with the Ontario Provincial Police, where we've committed resources across the policing sector in Ontario to deal with the rise of violence associated to vehicle thefts, particularly carjackings and the level of home invasion robberies for car keys.
On the topic of protests, which have become a central issue since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, police have spent nearly $3 million to cover the cost of overtime.
When people see these protests and demonstrations unraveling on city streets, they often see police actions that can sometimes look robotic. How are these demonstrations impacting your officers?
You described it as robotic. I would tell you that behind that is certainly a compassion and an empathy because they understand what people are going through. We take steps to help them understand by bringing the community perspective in our training.
Looking forward to his goals for 2024, Chief Demkiw says they'll be determined by the budget.
We are certainly focused on reconstituting our core service delivery capacity. How that's accomplished will be defined in the next few weeks.
Rahim Ladani, CTV News, Toronto.
Still to come tonight, the Pickering nuclear plant powers on. The Ford government's multi-billion-dollar refurbishment plan.
Let's take a live look at the city. It's still cloudy. There are some scattered light flurries here and there, but that won't last long. Not the sunny day we had yesterday, but the sunshine will return in a few days. Let's take a look at the satellite radar. There is a system coming toward us, but it is weakening and there isn't really much not much for us to talk about. That's why there's a slight risk of a few wet flurries here and there. Right now, we're well above seasonal. We're at +1 in Oshawa, +2 in Toronto, +3 in Burlington. Overnight, things will cool down, but not much. -3 overnight, cloudy, a bit of a wind, but not too much, causing a bit of a wind chill. Sunrise at 7:36. We'll give you a look at the long-range forecast a little bit later in the show.
Now we turn to the plan to keep power flowing in the province.
The Ford government announcing its intention to extend the life of the Pickering nuclear plant for another 30 years. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us with the details and reaction. Siobhan.
Well, the government sees this as a way to shore up our electricity supply for a new generation, but critics say it's backwards thinking that will mean you pay more to turn on the lights. This nuclear plant on the edge of Lake Ontario in Pickering provides 14% of the province's electricity. The government wants to keep it up, planning to refurbish 4 reactors that date back to the mid-80s.
Okay, so that's a hit. That's good news.
A federal regulator still needs to sign off, but if it goes ahead,
the station will produce 2,000 megawatts of safe, reliable, and clean electricity. That's enough to power 2 million homes.
A freshened source of power for a new generation. This is a long-term project. The refurbishment likely wouldn't be done until the mid-2030s.
If you go down Brock Road, you'll see all the spin-off jobs, the supply chain jobs that will maintain and grow.
As many as 11,000 jobs are expected through the rebuild. The provincial government will spend $2 billion this year to get the refurbishment project going. As for the final price tag, well, we'll have to wait a while for that.
It would be irresponsible at this point in time to put a number out there.
With much of the planning work still to do, the government is resisting calls to diversify our energy sources and to lean harder on wind and solar.
This is the plan that makes sense. It's as simple as that.
But opponents insist Ontario is time traveling with energy policy.
It's the equivalent of deciding to repair my dad's old Betamax VHS instead of getting a Netflix subscription.
He points to research by the International Energy Agency.
They say that wind and solar are the way of the future. They say, solar has replaced coal as the king of the electricity system.
And investing in nuclear, opponents say, will have everyday consequences.
Rebuilding the Pickering nuclear station will push our electricity rates up even higher. And that doesn't make sense when now wind and solar is our lowest cost source of new electricity supply.
And can be ready for service in a year or two. The energy minister says Ontario's electricity operator did look at other options, but determined that this plan offered the best bang for the buck. Nathan.
And Siobhan, we learned today the Supreme Court will weigh in on a case brought on by the province. What can you tell us about that?
Well, this is a fight that goes back to 2018. Since then, the CBC has been fighting for the release of mandate letters, essentially the marching orders that ministers are given when they take over their portfolios. The Ford government's been arguing to keep those under lock and key. They say that they should be covered by cabinet privilege. Of course, the courts have disagreed, so they've taken this all the way up to the Supreme Court. I asked the finance minister about this today. He's maintaining that position and says if you want to know what the government's priorities are, you just look at the budget. So we will find out on Friday morning which side of this fight the Supreme Court's coming down on. Reporting live from Pickering, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Siobhan. The City of Toronto is one step closer to implementing its own foreign buyers tax on real estate. The Executive Committee passed a motion on the proposal this morning. It would add a 10% tax on the sale of houses, townhouses, and condos for non-Canadians. The municipal non-resident speculation tax would essentially mirror the province's 25% tax on foreign entities purchasing real estate. If approved, the new municipal tax would be put in place next year when the federal government's current 2-year ban on foreign buyers ends. The motion now goes to council as a whole.
The Toronto Public Library's website is back up and running. It's been offline for months after a cyber attack. Users will be able to find information about resources, services, and programs, but there are some functions that still aren't available, such as your personal library account. Toronto Public Library says the catalog and search tools should be back online later in February.
Closing submissions are underway at the inquest into the death of a teenager shot by a Toronto police officer more than a decade ago.
18-year-old Sammy Yatim was killed by Constable James Frisilla while holding a knife on an empty streetcar in July of 2013. CTV's Beth McDonnell has been monitoring today's proceedings, and she joins us live with the details. Beth.
Michelle, many of the lawyers for stakeholders, including those of police officers, spoke to the profound impact Sammy Yatim's death has had on policing here in Toronto and across Ontario. While nothing can erase the pain and loss for Sammy Yatim's family, the inquest has come up with 53 suggested recommendations, and it's now up to the jury to deliberate. The sunshine of their life. These are the words the lawyer representing Sammy Yatim's mother, Sahar Bahadi, asked the jury to remember in their deliberations. She pointed to a recommendation police be equipped with tasers 7 years before he was killed, and moving forward, don't want his death to be in vain. To save the next Sammy, we must be proactive, not reactive, she said. It's been more than 10 years since the 18-year-old was shot 8 times by Toronto police officer James Forcillo on a streetcar in July 2013. The inquest into Yatim's death now reaching an endpoint, the main parties each speaking to the 53 suggested recommendations. You, jury members, if you make recommendations, they too have the power to reverberate across the province, the Inquest Council said. One of the most important for Yatim's family, an increase to financial and emotional support for families of people killed by police officers. Their lawyers sharing Yatim's sister's, Sarah's struggle. 17 when her brother was killed, she is now 27, living with PTSD, still trying to access help to deal with her grief and trauma. Forcillo's lawyer also agreed with the family's call for more mental health supports, along with measures to keep improving de-escalation techniques and peer interventions in high-stress situations, saying, "We support any recommendations in this area." Lawyers for the Toronto Police Service Board, the Chief of Police, and the Ministry of the Solicitor General also spoke to recommendations around police screening, training, and job performance, not often covered in inquests. In his instructions to the jury, the presiding officer over the inquest told members they are not required to make any recommendations. However, the most impactful recommendations would likely come from ones, if they had been in place in 2013, would have prevented Yatim's death. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Nathan, Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. Kenneth Law had his first court appearance today since his charges were upgraded to 14 counts of first-degree murder. Law is accused of selling lethal substances around the world to people looking to end their own lives. Law had previously been charged with 14 counts of second-degree murder prior to the charges being upgraded. He's also facing 14 counts of counseling or aiding suicide. The case against him will move from the Ontario Court of Justice to the Superior Court in Newmarket. The next court date is February 1st.
York University is expressing concern over a communication being circulated around campus.
It refers to the war in Gaza as a genocide and appears to be directed towards teaching assistants. As CTV Sean Leithong reports, has left some students, particularly those in the Jewish community, feeling unsafe.
Wearing a Star of David pendant around her neck, Johanna Joseph finds herself conflicted when entering class at York University.
One of the pendants is from my late grandmother, who was a Holocaust survivor, and whenever I enter classrooms, I, take it off. I get very nervous.
Inside Hillel, a Jewish student group at York, Joseph says they're feeling targeted. It comes after a document called A Toolkit for Teaching Palestine began circulating last week, sent by the group representing teaching assistants at York, CUPE Local 3909. The document served as a call to action to divert this week's tutorials to teaching on Palestine liberation, designed to stand in solidarity with the Palestine liberation movement to contribute in ending Canada's and York's complicity with genocide. Complicity, it says, as evident through economic and academic relationships with various Zionist cultural institutions, for example, Hillel. Students inside Hillel say they're shocked to see their organization singled out by teaching assistants.
Being a Jewish student, this is one of the only places that I do feel safe on campus. And the labeling and calling out, it makes it feel like Hillel kind of is a target now.
Dan Lavey is the director of Hillel York. He says that more than a dozen Jewish students have contacted him concerned that teaching assistants will treat them unfairly.
They're sitting there in the classroom
And the person who can grade them is the one telling them that what they're saying is wrong and that their opinions don't matter and that, they're in the wrong for existing as their whole selves.
A recent letter to staff from President and Vice Chancellor Rhonda Linton says in part, York Senior Administration does not find the recent email communication from CUPE Local 3903 to be in accordance with the rightful expectations of the university as an employer, the needs of the students, and the legitimate claims of the community. And the university's senior administration has written directly to CUPE Local 3903 leadership to discuss this important matter. We contacted CUPE Local 3903 and the York Federation of Students for comment, but did not receive a response. This is not the first time that the administration here at York University has been at odds with an organization on campus since the beginning of the war in Gaza.
Stop the killing, stop the hate!
Last fall, York University administration condemned a statement from 3 student unions that called the October 7th terrorist attack a strong act of resistance. Administration demanded their boards resign. At Hillel, they say the Israeli flag that hangs not far from their door has been torn down once, while security has caught others making attempts. Johanna Joseph says she cannot believe what she's seen from the union representing teaching assistants.
My late grandparents were survivors of Auschwitz, the concentration camps, and if they were here today, knowing that the university I attend was saying that we were participating in a genocide, that would be, that would end their world, truly.
York University administration says dialogue on world events in the classroom should allow for expression of diverse perspectives, but that it should always be respectful. Sean Leathong, CTV News.
A new arrangement between Manulife Insurance and pharmacies owned by Loblaw have some worried about the impact on independent drugstores.
In the deal, certain medications will only be covered if filled at Loblaw drugstores. CTV's Heather Wright reports on the implications for you and your family.
There are more than 11,000 pharmacies in Canada, but for those with insurance coverage from Manulife, options for filling some prescriptions are being limited. Manulife has announced that it will only provide coverage for certain prescription drugs when filled at pharmacies owned by grocery giant Loblaw, a deal that affects roughly 260 medications used to treat conditions such as arthritis, Crohn's, MS, cancer, and osteoporosis.
The real story here is it's a sign of things to come.
Steve Morgan is a professor of health policy at the University of British Columbia and says these types of exclusivity deals are common in the United States and becoming more prevalent in Canada. He worries about the impact these types of deals will have on independent pharmacies, as well as on competition in the pharmacy sector.
The consolidation of the pharmacy retail business means less choice for Canadians. It'll start looking a lot like our telecom industry, where really we don't have much choice and we pay fairly high prices. You don't want to see that in your pharmaceutical sector.
Manulife says the deal will provide more options for group benefits members, with prescriptions available for pickup, in-store, or by delivery. Some of these drugs were already limited in where they could be filled. Loblaw, which owns Shoppers Drug Mart, says the company expects the experience for patients will remain unchanged, if not better. This deal will not apply in Quebec, where rules prevent preferred pharmacy networks, but for those in small and rural communities in other parts of the country, it might mean driving longer distances to a Loblaw-owned pharmacy.
It's not ideal from a patient care perspective, and it introduces an uneven playing field because largely independent pharmacies aren't able to participate.
Some say these types of deals do lower the cost of prescription drugs, though it's not clear how much, if any, of those savings are passed along to the consumer. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
3 NHL players have been charged in connection with allegations involving Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey Team. Lawyers for New Jersey Devils forward Michael McLeod, Calgary Flames forward Dylan Dubé, and Philadelphia Flyers goaltender Carter Hart say their clients will plead not guilty. TSN confirmed today that Hart, Dubé, Cal Foote, and McLeod are the remaining 4 players who were directed to surrender to London police. Former NHL player Alex Fermenton has already been charged and will plead not guilty. They're accused of sexually assaulting a woman at a London hotel in June of 2018 following a Hockey Canada event. None of the allegations have been proven.
The Canadian government is sending an additional $40 million to help Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
This is a commitment that we made that each and every innocent civilian who has humanitarian needs, we will step up for them, and we're stepping up in a big way with an additional $40 million today. Throughout this conflict, we've centered our decisions on the lives of innocent civilians in this conflict, and this is a demonstration of Canada's commitment to continue to deliver much-needed aid.
Most of the money will go to the World Food Program, UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and the Red Cross. About $5 million has been set aside for Canadian non-governmental groups. On Friday, Canada joined several other countries in suspending funds to the UN Agency for Palestine refugees. There are allegations several members of the group took part in the deadly October 7th Hamas attack in Israel that started the war.
In the West Bank, Israeli soldiers stormed into a hospital today. Disguised as medical workers and women, they killed 3 Palestinian militants in the northern city of Jenin. The Palestinian Health Ministry said the Israeli forces opened fire inside the hospital's wards and called on the international community to stop Israeli operations in hospitals. In Gaza today, there was intense fighting in both the north and the south, where Israel is trying to assault the main city of Khan Yunis.
The Prime Minister will not be the subject of an ethics investigation following his recent holiday in Jamaica.
It's confidential. I'm not responsible for the spokesman of the Prime Minister and the way he characterizes our interaction. I can only tell you what happened. They consulted us, we gave advice, they went to Jamaica. If it had not been an acceptable gift, it would have had to be reported on our website. 30 days have passed and nothing has been reported.
Earlier this month, the National Post reported Justin Trudeau was staying at a luxury estate owned by his longtime friend Peter Green. The PM's office said the family's stay was offered at no cost, after previously stating the family would be covering the cost of their accommodation. Today, the interim ethics commissioner said he considers the case closed. Conrad von Finkenstein told a Commons committee that Trudeau's stay was acceptable because it came from a friend with whom he has a true depth of friendship.
Meanwhile, the Speaker of the House of Commons will stay on. MPs voted down another attempt today to remove Greg Fergus. The Conservatives and Bloc Québécois called for him to resign nearly 2 months ago, citing concerns about his impartiality. Fergus delivered a video tribute at a party event for the Ontario Liberals while wearing his Speaker robes. Liberal and NDP members of the House recommended he keep his job, but apologize and pay back Parliament for using its resources.
The president of Slovakia has kicked off a 3-day visit to Canada, a trip that includes a stop in Toronto. The prime minister welcomes Zuzana Kapitova to Parliament Hill, where the two leaders held talks this afternoon. It was expected they would discuss a wide range of issues, including bilateral relations and support for Ukraine. Kapitova will be the guest of honor at a state dinner this evening. Slovakia's first woman president will also be in Toronto later this week before wrapping up her visit on Thursday. Coming up, it's not your average place to host a party, but it's just perfect for a little guy on his first birthday, celebrating life-saving gifts from the selflessness of strangers.
And here's another live look at the city. Great conditions to be outdoors skating. It is cloudy, but we are going to be getting some sunshine over the next few days, well above normal temperatures as well. As for how will things look tomorrow with the kids getting ready for school, a bit chilly in the morning, so I would suggest, wear that coat, scarf, hat, gloves, but it's going to warm up by noon, so when you go outside for recess, it'll be okay. Heading home from school, 5 degrees, so a pretty mild day tomorrow. And stay with us, we've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
The owners of more than 7,000 Toyota vehicles in Canada are being told to stop driving them. The airbag inflators in certain older models may explode, which could be fatal. The warning is related to some 2003 to 2004 Corollas, Corolla Matrixes, and RAV4s. The recall is not new, but the company is hoping to reach customers who may still be driving their vehicle with the problem still not fixed. Owners are urged to contact a Toyota dealership to have the repairs done for free.
Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
So not much in the way of sunshine today, but we're still in a mild trend, and it's actually going to get a little warmer in the days ahead.
Yeah, what's kind of surprising is normally when the clouds clear, then it gets a little cooler because the sun's not, the clouds aren't trapping the warm weather, but it's going to stay mild with sunshine. beginning maybe Friday, but going into the weekend. Right now, cloudy, not much active weather, but a slight chance of showers Thursday, and that's going to start Friday with that run of sun. Let's take a look at the current conditions right now. Well above seasonal, we're at, +2 in Toronto, +1 in Windsor. Funny, if you look out by Ottawa, it's cooler and also overnight goes down quite a bit, but we're not really dealing with that kind of a wind chill. That system that's coming toward us is nothing major. It's very light. That's the light flurries that we're talking about here and there, and that is really weakening. And you can see it weakens over time. So by tomorrow, around noon, we're talking nothing as far as the forecast radar except cloudy conditions. The lows overnight, well above seasonal, -3 in Toronto, -6 in Peterborough, -4 in Waterloo, -11 is normal, and -2 is normal for the highs, but we're talking 5 degrees tomorrow in Toronto, 4 in Peterborough, 3 in Waterloo. So everywhere you look pretty much in the GTA and across the province, well above seasonal conditions. Looking at the 7-day forecast, a few sunny breaks tomorrow are possible, which is nice. Thursday, there's a chance of a few wet flurries, but look at those highs. 5 on Wednesday, 4 on Thursday. Friday, that is a groundhog. So yes, the month coming to an end, a new month begins, Groundhog Day. And look at those conditions. Clearing, sunny skies on the Friday. Saturday, more sunshine, the high +2. Sunny on Sunday as well. Monday and Tuesday, the same thing. Those highs are consistent, pretty stable weather conditions. The lows a bit cooler than maybe what we're dealing with right now, but not really anywhere near what we should be getting this time of year. So we're talking sunshine, a nice run of sun over the next few days.
Also tonight, she captivated audiences on stage for generations, remembering the life and legacy of Broadway icon Chita Rivera, who died today at age 91.
Giving blood can be a life-saving gift, and it's why officials say every donation is worth celebrating.
That was certainly the case for a special Toronto boy whose family decided it was only fitting to hold his birthday party at their local blood donor clinic. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan has their story.
Give a kiss.
When little Rashawn Thomas was born, he nearly didn't survive. He had a problem with certain antibodies from his mom, Alicia.
It pretty much was kind of like restricting the blood flow from his placenta because my antibodies were attacking his red blood cells.
But doctors were ready to treat him with blood transfusions. Fortunately, Rashawn only needed 2 transfusions, and when it came time to celebrate his first birthday, his family wanted to give back to the organization that helped save his life.
I want to make sure that, we give back and we organize a big fundraiser donation party style.
So the Thomases held a party at Canadian Blood Services, and more than 30 of their friends and relatives came to give the gift of life. And for Dad Marvin, it was a first time since a restriction related to concerns about mad cow disease was lifted.
They had a rule that if you're born in England, or if you was in England more than 3 months during 1999, you wouldn't be able to donate blood. So that got removed. So recently, just before we had his birthday, and I was like, okay, then I guess I can donate blood.
In fact, it was a first for many of the guests, and the Thomases are still hearing from friends eager to give the next time they organize a blood donor party.
It's good, it's really good. It brings more awareness around to how important it is to donate blood.
Yeah, it's gonna be a birthday tradition for sure.
Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Happy birthday. Elon Musk has announced that for the first time, one of his companies has implanted a brain chip in a human. The FDA approved Neuralink for human tests last May after years of testing on animals. The device is designed to interpret a person's neural activity so they can operate a computer or a smartphone, for example, by simply thinking. Neuralink's goal is to help paralysis patients communicate by connecting their brain to a computer.
So if someone's lost the ability to speak because they have ALS, or if they've lost the ability to walk because they were paralyzed in a motorcycle accident, this is the kind of technology that promises to restore those abilities. And if you take it a little farther down the road, it could imbue people with abilities that humans normally don't have, like the ability to control a computer with your mind. So it's an exciting road, and it's just a little unclear how many steps up that road we're going. An implant, great, but we want to know more before we get too excited.
Musk says the person who received the implant is recovering well, and initial results show promising neuron spike detection.
Actor Alec Baldwin will be arraigned in New Mexico on Thursday. The actor is charged with involuntary manslaughter in the fatal shooting of a cinematographer on the set of the film Rust in 2021. The reinstated criminal case against Baldwin comes months after previous charges were dropped. Helena Hutchins was fatally struck by a bullet. The movie's director was wounded.
A shining light on Broadway has been dimmed.
From the chorus to the marquee, Chita Rivera conquered the stage. The award-winning performer has died at the age of 91. CTV's Andrea Case joins us now with a look at her life and how she's being remembered. Andrea.
Nathan and Michelle, good evening. Yes, now I'm a Broadway fan, so there's been many a time where I've been belting out songs from Chicago or West Side Story, and I won't bore you with that right now because, you know, if you've heard my singing, you know it's not great. But Cheetah Rivera was a triple threat, and she will always be remembered for her presence on stage and on screen.
Cheetah was our Anita.
I like to be in America, okay by me in America, everything free in America, what a small be in America.
Cheetah Rivera was born in America, Washington to be exact, in 1933.
Dolores Conchita Figueroa de Rivero, Montestuco, Florentina, Canimacro de Fluente.
The classically trained ballet dancer won a scholarship to George Balanchine's prestigious School of American Ballet. But as a singer and actor, she was largely self-taught. When she accompanied a friend to an audition, she was the one who got the job. Her big break came in 1957 when she was cast as Anita in the original Broadway production of West Side Story. She didn't get the film role, but she says she was okay with it as she was on stage with Dick Van Dyke in Bye Bye Birdie. From New York to London, for 7 decades, Rivera kept audiences spellbound, including in the musical Chicago. She played Velma Kelly.
And all that jazz.
After a car accident in 1986, which left her with a shattered leg, put back together with screws and plates, doctors told her she would never dance again. They were wrong. She was nominated for 10 Tony Awards and won 2, including for Kiss of the Spider-Woman, which got its start on the Toronto stage.
And most of all, I really want to thank Garth Drabinsky, our producer, who promised with all his heart he would bring us home. And he did just that with his heart. He brought us home. Thank you, Garth. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, God.
In 2002, she became the first Hispanic American woman to receive the Kennedy Honors, and in 2009, she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Barack Obama. Her death was announced in a statement by her daughter. It gave no other details. Cheetah Rivera was 91. Okay, how important was Cheetah Rivera when she was bringing West Side Story to the London stage? They halted production until she could give birth to her daughter. For CTV News, I'm Andrea Case. Good night, Cheetah.
Thank you, Andrea. One of the most successful songwriting duos in rock history will be honored in Washington.
Piano man, you make us stand.
The Library of Congress is going to present the Gershwin Prize to Elton John and lyricist Bernie Taupin in March. The pair penned a slew of hits, including Your Song, Tiny Dancer, and Rocket Man. There will also be an all-star tribute concert in celebration.
This year's Super Bowl is set to be the most expensive NFL title game ever. Online ticket marketplace TickPick says the average aftermarket price to attend the big game in Vegas is around $9,800 US. That's 70% more than last year. The cheapest ticket is going for $8,100, up 50% from 2023. The Chiefs and 49ers square off February 11th.
Meanwhile, a marketing group estimates the brand value of Taylor Swift's relationship with the Chiefs' Travis Kelce to the team and the league is $331 million. It spans the first time the singer was seen cheering him on at Arrowhead Stadium in September through to January 22nd. Imagine what the number might be if Kansas City repeats as champions.
After the break, the disqualification of a Russian figure skater does not mean a bronze for Canada after all. Just ahead, the surprising ruling that has Skate Canada looking to appeal.
On the next CP24 Breakfast this weekend, Trinity Bellwoods Park will transform into a celebration of inclusion and hockey. Former NHLer Akim Aliu will be here to tell us all about it. CP24 Breakfast up first at 5:30.
Big bang noise, and like for me, my window is literally right in front of the light pole, and I saw a big flash noise. I saw a big flash as well, like 2 big flashes from like the power.
Updating our top stories, 2 paramedics were injured after a minivan smashed into an ambulance early this morning. It happened near Dover Court and Hallam Street shortly before 4 a.m. Police are still searching for the driver and an occupant of that van.
Social services across the city have only ever been given a sliver of the pie, and they're expected to just make it work. Meanwhile, the cops keep asking for the entire pie.
Calls for a bite to be taken out of the police budget as the city's executive committee meets for a final time before the mayor presents her vision for the budget. Council is still looking for ways to address the nearly $2 billion funding gap.
The station will produce 2,000 megawatts of safe, reliable, and clean electricity. That's enough to power 2 million homes.
The province is pushing ahead with a plan to refurbish 4 reactors at Pickering's nuclear plant. The project still needs federal approval, but the Ford government says it's necessary to keep electricity costs low. Meanwhile, opponents say the province should instead be putting the money towards wind and solar energy projects. On the markets, the Canadian dollar trading just a hair higher at 74.64 cents U.S. West Texas Intermediate oil gained $1 to almost 78 U.S. a barrel, and the TSX added 27 points to end the day at 21,227.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
UPS is cutting 12,000 jobs worldwide. The delivery giant says the move is part of a bid to save $1 billion. Managers and contractor positions will make up most of the layoffs. The company has about 85,000 managers as part of its global workforce and over 300,000 hourly workers in the U.S. The cuts come as UPS issued a disappointing sales outlook for this year.
Canada's skating team will not be upgraded to a bronze medal at the 2022 Olympics after all. A ruling came down yesterday from the International Skating Union that Russian skater Kamila Valieva was disqualified because she used a banned substance. So the International Skating Union changed the results, moving the U.S. to gold and giving Japan the silver. Fourth place Canada was in line for bronze, but that has now been given to the demoted Russian skaters who had 1 more point than the Canadians. Skate Canada says it is disappointed. It says the ISU in its recent decision is not applying Rule 353, which states that competitors having finished the competition and who initially placed lower than the disqualified competitor will move up accordingly in their placement. Skate Canada says it is looking at avenues for appeal.
To the baseball diamond, and the Toronto Blue Jays have reportedly signed infielder Justin Turner.
He has been very good today. Is this swing and a drive head over the wall? That one is up there and off the green.
The 39-year-old hit .276 with 23 homers last season for the Red Sox. He spent much of the time as a designated hitter. The Jays have yet to confirm the 1-year deal, which reports say is worth $13 million. There's also an additional $1.5 million in potential bonuses. Turner won a World Series with the Dodgers in 2020.
Meantime, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is gracing the cover of MLB The Show 24. It's very appropriate because the Blue Jays first baseman says he grew up playing video games. He follows in the footsteps of his father, Vladimir Guerrero Sr. Dad was on the cover of MLB 2006. MLB The Show 24 is scheduled to launch March 19th for all major consoles.
Toronto Raptors carry a 5-game losing streak into Chicago tonight.
Porter. Oh, wow, what a beautiful cut.
The Raptors could be without 3 injured starters. R.J. Barrett will miss tonight's game with a sore knee. Emmanuel Quickley is listed as doubtful with a right quad contusion. And Jakob Poeltl is questionable with a sprained ankle.
And Scotty Barnes had the top-selling NBA jersey in Canada for the first half of the season. Lakers superstar LeBron James and Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors round out the top 3 of the 15-player list announced by the league today. Raptors rookie Grady Dick was 15th in jersey sales in Canada.
Just ahead, the extensive endeavor for an aptly named space shuttle, retired but far from out of sight. The mission to move this piece of history into its permanent new home. A retired NASA space shuttle has been carefully hoisted at a Los Angeles museum.
Endeavour will be displayed there as if it is about to blast off. A massive crane delicately moved the shuttle into a partially built air and space center. Crews then attached Endeavour to a tank in a process that lasted into the pre-dawn hours today. The building will be completed around Endeavour before the display opens to the public. Endeavour flew 25 missions between 1992 and 2011 when NASA's shuttle program ended. Quite the sight. It'll be a big draw.
Indeed.
Weather-wise, we do have some sun coming, but tomorrow a little bit possibly. I'm nervous. It's not going to show up.
We get a bit of a possibility of a break of sunshine tomorrow, but then on Friday it begins this run of sun. I'll show you the current conditions right now. So that's the satellite radar. There is a system moving toward the city, but it's really going to weaken. Not a major concern. A chance of a few flurries here and there. But looking at the long-range forecast, so today. Tomorrow, the high is 5 for tomorrow, a high of 4 on Thursday. Groundhog Day starting February, +1. But just look at Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I mean, we're talking sunshine and mild conditions, which you don't normally get this time of year. So overall, things are looking pretty good if you like the mild weather. All right, be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Natalie Johnson with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For all of us at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a good night.